This is a members only video. You can actually preview this right now to see what you can expect when you become a member. Hello and welcome to this course. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about podcasts. We're going to cover it from a beginner point of view. I'm going to give you information about the holistic ideas and concepts you need to consider. So if you're thinking about setting up a podcast, you're not sure about how to go about it, what the things are that you need to consider, this course is for you. I'm going to cover a number of aspects. We're going to talk about why a podcast could be a good idea, how you can set up a podcast, what equipment you will need, what software you're going to need, as well as the services that you could think about hosting with for free to get your podcast out there to see if you have an audience. Everything will be covered in this in a straightforward manner. I'm going to cover it and give you the top tips that I use for my podcast and how I found a podcast that I would not have otherwise started actually getting listeners and people are interested in what I want to say and what I have to say. So I want to get you in this boat. If you're not sure, I would say look through this course. The information I share with you will help you to actually start it up. If in doubt, start it, because it's actually free to set up. It'll take a bit of time. You'll invest a bit of time into creating content. If you go through this course, you'll actually know if it is right for you, and you will see how I use that to actually make a plan for a podcast episode to keep it moving. So in later section, you'll see more about that. Let's carry on with the course. The main thing here is going to be, why are you making a podcast? But this needs to be broken down to a few sections. If you understand the reason you're doing a podcast is going to make the entire process nice and easy. So let's have a quick look at our why. So I'm going to go through this in the way I would think about it. So this should help you. We've got why. Let's get you nice and close onto that there. You can see as I come up with these. So we've got a why. That will mean a number of things. Have you got something you're looking to share? Is that something going to be a regular thing? So in the next section, we're going to talk about the 10 challenge. The 10 challenge will help you a lot with this why. And answer the question. So in either case, if you're doing something as a hobbyist, if you want to share information about something you're looking to make, do, find out about, it might be a good option for a podcast. If you're doing it as a business, will it be a good option to have a podcast? You need to get this into perspective. A podcast will mean you need to do a number of things to get it ready. You're going to have to spend time investing in creating episodes, in editing the episodes, having it ready to be inserted with ads or sponsors if you're looking to make money from it. All of these things, as well as investing the time to look at courses to find out if the podcast software, the services you're going to be using, you might have to pay money for these services. Will it work out for you in the long run? Is your idea to get your name out there, to be an expert in a field? If that's the case, then a why is a good why, because you're looking to share information. That's a quick overview about if you should start a podcast. But next we're going to look at a bit more information about the 10 challenge. Let's check that out. So what is the 10 challenge? The 10 challenge is basically the idea you've got. Can you think of 10 podcast ideas for your podcast that you're thinking about making? List them down. So I could comfortably make 10 podcast episodes about my idea. For example, I already have a podcast, Zof Talks Photography Podcast, and I could easily talk about, let me give you an example. What is the best lens to buy? Is a DSLR camera a good first camera? Which camera should I take on holiday? What is a good camera to use for holiday photos? Should I buy a new camera or look at an old camera? Is a DSLR camera better than a mirrorless camera? What megapixel camera should I get? What is a good lens to buy for starting in photography? Should I buy an expensive camera or a cheap camera? What is the best camera for group photos? That's 10 ideas off the top of my head, which I could build out into episodes, easily 20-30 minutes per episode, and speak about them. So that's my 10 challenge done, because I've come up with 10 specific items I could make. If you got a bigger list, that just helps you confirm that the idea you've got is going to be a good one for a podcast. But don't worry, if you haven't got an idea, I made a full course explaining how to come up with a brand idea or a business idea that you could turn into a brand. And actually, I was able to give you a number of ideas there that helps you make a business or a brand. So make sure you check out that course. But in this one, we're concentrating on podcasts and also how to start a podcast and a number of other things. So we've done the 10 challenge there. Let's have a look at the next section. It's also worth considering, will your idea actually make a good podcast? That's a very good question, because not everything can be a podcast. So think about the situation here. If you're listening to something, you want everything given to you by speaking or listening. So if someone is showing a lot of examples of items or doing writing on papers, then that will be something that needs to think about it. So is it always a good idea to go down the podcast route? Not always, because what will happen is, if you have something that you're reviewing products, you might have to approach it in a different way for the benefit of the listeners. So we need to consider, if you're talking about products and you're making actual guides, you need to consider your podcast audience. So when you're recording a podcast, make sure you're not saying things like, oh, let's look at this, can you see this, etc., because your audience will be listening to you. So make sure you're tailoring your service in a way that you can make best use of it. So that means giving extra explanation. So actually going into more details. So for example, if I was talking about the best lens for photography, I would say things like, so with the photography lens, I have a number of different lenses that I would use. However, a smaller lens, so for example, the palm of your hand, if you can fit a lens in your palm of your hand, I would consider that a good size lens and smaller. However, if you had to use both hands to pick up a lens, that is going to be a bigger lens. So you'll see I was using more descriptive words, using measurement types of, for example, a hand, double the size, so double hand holding. So this all helps with someone listening. So you want to give a lot more information to help people visualize what you're saying. So this means not everything can make a good podcast, but if it does, you need to use extra descriptive words to help the listener understand you. So that's giving you a bit of a information download about that. Also, it's worth considering what you want to make the podcast about, because when you're making a podcast, you want to consider the topic, the title. Also, we talked about this a bit earlier in terms of branding. If you nail down your brand and you know what you're talking about, try and stick to that relevancy of that item. So for example, if you're making a podcast about talking about film, I'm going to have to pause the video there. This is a members only video. That does mean the full version of this video with the full detailed breakdown is only available when you join my YouTube channel. So there's a subscribe button below. If you're already subscribed, excellent. If you're not, that's the first thing to do. You can actually click the join button, and once you click the join button, that allows you to become a member of my channel. There is a fee as part of this. However, in return, you get extra perks like access to the members only videos. So you'll get the full version of this video and you can actually watch it all to learn something. It's a lot cheaper than having to pay for a Udemy or Skillshare course, which can be a lot more money. So I made these available to different budgets. So what you need to do is join, and then you'll get access to the playlist of these videos and you can watch the full video there.